Hello to our Facebook group, and here I am on Instagram. Welcome back. Day 2 of our May mood lift and shift. So I'll give you a couple minutes to come on. But I love that you can take this in at your leisure, either on Instagram or on Facebook. And I'm also uploading it up to my YouTube channel afterwards. So then it'll also be in one big playlist if you wanted to get to catch the whole series in case you don't get to do it day by day. And I also wanted to say, hi, Beverly. And I wanted to say that I'm really offering this in a way that you could take this in any way that you want. You might just drop in for some of the days. You might do all of them. There's not necessarily an importance to doing them all in order, but although I am really being conscious and creative with what feels like important to bring up in what order. So you might get the most out of it if you take it in order. So here's day 2. And yesterday we talked about presence and even being more of an observer and the importance of attention and what we now know about how important that is with how it affects our mood actually and our mind and our mental health. So you can go back and check that video if you haven't. I'll make sure there's links to find that from yesterday. And I found myself more present in many ways throughout the day after getting into that with you all. So I'm hoping that you did too, and just discovering how you can do that through just about any activity. You can let it be a reason and a place to practice presence, especially the most mundane of things, right? Like dishes or laundry or things like that. So, or driving even. Any activity really. So presence was day 1. So day 2, I decided what seemed important to bring up next in really helping express to you what I see is the power of what we're doing, a big part of the power of what we can do with affecting our mood, affecting our mind, and affecting our mental health with these practices of yoga and meditation. And again, you might be surprised at some of what's coming through here, because I do want there to be a little feeling of practice to each video each day, but it's also just centered around even a concept and a part of the psychology to these systems and the philosophies too, right? And that's how it helps us in approaching these, now we know, important issues, right? And again, that's where I feel like with each video, I want to also just say from my heart that I want to be super respectful that we have our own experience with these things, and that, you are, of course, feel free to just, take up what feels true for you, what resonates, and whatever doesn't, feel free to, toss out. And really just my wanting to share what could help any of us, wherever we're at in the spectrum, whether we've got a diagnosis, whether we're on meds, whether we don't, but we all, I think, have our own interesting ride anyways with things like mood and mind and this idea of mental health and thinking about mental health before it becomes a problem, right? Isn't that interesting as a concept, to address it as an important part of life? And what if we do just acknowledge that and attend to it proactively, right? Not wait till we're feeling terrible. But also the feeling terrible in whatever ways can be part of what gets us to decide to start to look at how we're handling our mood, our mind, and mental health, and even maybe start to take in new resources, take in new ideas, look at what has been working for us, what hasn't, and most importantly through it all is the non-judgment that we bring in with these practices. So instead of making there be a day about non-judgment and the self-love approach that we drop into when we're doing things like yoga and meditation, I think I'm just going to be mentioning that each day as like the foundational, helpful psychology and energy that's super important and powerful with all of this. So that non-judgment right away is one of the hugest shifts, and even more like self-love, right? Like as we're doing this, listening to ourselves, this tuning into ourselves, this discovering what is true, and then also playing with what we can shift and change and improve and lift, right? And getting excited about the fact that we can do such things. So that may be mind opening for you, or even belief challenging for you to open to that that's possible and that we could change our mental health. But again, I just want to be respectful and more empowering us. But whatever works for you, that maybe it's even more powerful to realize we do have a power in it, right? And it's not just what's handed to us. It's not just what's happening to us. It's not just what we're born with. I really believe that. I mean, I think we now know that with the genetics. So I won't talk much longer about that, but it's really just, genetic predisposition, if anything, which is triggered or not by lifestyle. So maybe if it has been triggered, I think we can untrigger it, and like smooth it out and soothe it out and make some shifts and get to a little more manageable ride with our moods, our mental health, and what's happening and how it's feeling in the mind, right? And how we're using it, much less how that's working for us and playing out in our lives. And that's all part of it, to see it's also connected, right? So today's important topic, which is one of the biggest pieces that you get from these systems, is this energy thing, that it's all energy, all of it. And this is where you could look at it from all sorts of perspectives. If you're, more of like a scientific person and maybe even a skeptic and you don't even want to talk about spiritual stuff, what's cool is we now know with the tiny, most microscopic tools, how we can look at atoms and any material thing in our world. We can now see, when we boil it down, what is it all made of? What is at the tiniest, most base elements of everything? What ties it all together? Even an atom, what holds an atom together is energy. And between it all is energy. And so we start to see that our bodies are totally energy. Everything happening in our bodies are energy. Then we start to realize that our thoughts are even energy. And our feelings are even a form of energy. And then we start to even see that life around us is all a form of energy. And then there's this awareness too, that there are some laws with this energy that everybody seems to talk about, that there's some truth to how, first of all, our focus and our attention plays a role in how energy is going in our life. And we now know that the human consciousness is that powerful that whatever we focus on with our attention, that's where that attention, that presence is like day one, because we really want to get present with where our presence is, because we now know whatever we're focusing on is going to get stronger, is going to increase the energy of that, whatever it is. And then you could even take it that next step of like what the fact that we're even like transmitting an energy from what we're even thinking and feeling. And so we're sending out an energy, a vibe, right? A frequency. And that is affecting everything around us, right? And that there's also this like karma, law of attraction, what goes around comes around piece, or like attracts like, or, it's been said in a million ways, but that, yes, that what we're sending out vibrationally does attract back more of the same in thoughts, in feelings, in experiences, in momentum, because it's all energy. And we start to see, as yogis, as meditators, as we start to become aware of our attention and how we're using it, and we know it's all energy now, then we start to see like, oh, how I'm focusing is creating a lot of it, where my attention is, how my presence is. And then also we start to see that we can read that energy also as guidance. And so, I would say in the most scientific level, and then you can also say on a spiritual level, if you like that, or if you just see it as like we're all made of life force, or the same chi energy, prana, or God energy, or spirit, or we're all, God's children, however you like to see it, maybe like all of the above. But that's about energy too. that we're made of and that we're connected to and that we're maybe even receiving and transmitting and flowing or not. And that then we start to see that we have a relationship with that energy and how it's flowing and going and playing out in how our bodies are feeling, how our thoughts are going, how our feelings are feeling, and how our life is going even, right? Because we start to see how it's all connected, it's all energy, and it really does all start with us. This is where I've been loving this idea of talking about it like magic, because it's like, oh, then you realize, oh, we're the magic. If we start to realize like we're the source of so much of it, or at all, even in a sense that you can really start to see that what you're vibing out is what you're drawing back more of in all forms. So that's where too it becomes playful and powerful, that we can change our energy, shift our energy, lift our energy, that we're doing energy medicine with ourselves, to ourselves, with these practices. So that's where you see like, oh, I can be my own energy medicine practitioner. Even if you receive energy medicine from other people, that's totally awesome. And that's rad, do that. But also you start to see like, I'm made of energy. And at some point it becomes my job to start to manage that energy, right? And that is going to affect how I feel. And then the piece with the feelings, which I think tomorrow is going to be about more about feelings, and how feelings we can start to see our guidance, and that feelings are even something we want to feel and not be afraid of too, right? That's where you start to see some of the belief systems behind things like feelings and even mood, and what's possible and what we want to call it is going to dictate how it's going to go and how the momentum's going to go and how we start to talk about it and feel about it and focus on it. So yeah, and let's even for a moment do this just so you can experience it, because I do want there to be a practical element. So how could we even right now affect our energy, or tune into our energy, or even be aware of what energy we're in, or even transmitting, right? Or much less like receiving back more of. So that's where we start with this presence, like getting into the moment a little more and getting feeling and listening, sensing. As a start, that presence is the first piece. Bring in that non-judgment. But yeah, do just start to notice as you relax a little bit more into your position. Remember, your face and jaw relaxing helps. Body relaxing helps you start to do that tuning in more, that noticing. That we're going to first just check out how we are doing and feeling. And then you start to see like, oh, how I'm feeling tells me about the energy I'm in. And the sorts of thoughts that are running through is telling me about like the energy that I'm into, that's correlated to the energy I'm in. And even how my body's doing is some information about energy, maybe even some information of where there might be stuck energy and where we might want to do some freeing up of energy or bringing in some fresh energy. But just this dropping in and tuning in to how we actually do feel is the first step. And that's where you see like a lot of us aren't even stopping and doing that, much less having a chance to tune it and shift it. So just the presence and just the noticing was the hugest piece to be willing to do, right? And then bring in that non-judgment as you would do notice what is true. And then starting to right away be like, oh yeah, it's all energy. What's happening with me energy-wise? You know, how's the body doing? How's the emotions feeling? How's the mindset going this morning? What am I imagining? Imagination is a huge tool that we're going to add in one of these days, a whole day about as a yoga and meditation tool. But what are we imagining generally? And yeah, even like what's happening in life around me? And then just all energy and just kind of starting to see there's a correlation there, right? And then the things that we can start to do with energy medicine from these practices that are so simple. So the relaxing is one of them, that when we're just more relaxed right away, our energy is flowing more smoothly. And that's already going to lift and shift our energy because it's vibration, and the fact that you're just feeling a little bit better and even holding your energy more softly, and to even get into how that's affecting how your energy is flowing on all levels. So that's where like this relaxing, there's a reason we've been talking about it for years. And so anything that does that for you, but even just being able to relax yourself more in this moment is part of what you're doing when you do these practices, just getting better and better at doing that. And then when you're practicing, reminding yourself to let it be about that, like, oh, could I soften my face and jaw more? Because remember, that tool we now know works like a domino effect on the nervous system. Every time you relax your face and jaw, it's going to help your nervous system shift towards more like calm. And that's just going to help it all, energy-wise, feel better, which means like shift the energy, even improve your vibe, raise your vibe. So relaxing raises your vibe, right? Did we realize that? And that's where you start to see like, oh, that's why maybe taking little aims towards feeling better is part of energy shifts, right? And that's going to shift it all, even the types of thoughts we're having, right? And then you also see we're starting to play with our focus, which might be helpful, because if we'd gotten in a momentum that wasn't helpful and it's pretty strong, some of these elements are like getting us out of that a little bit, right? Getting us more in the moment, more in the body, creating a little gap in those thoughts more to kind of even shift the momentum. And that's where like the quieting of the mind can do that too, for the momentum, because there's a momentum and a law of attraction is to the thoughts too, right? And then breath. We haven't even talked about breath, but we all know that's a huge one. So let's just try adding that as huge energy medicine. And I like to keep it simple, like back to how we were born breathing. You might put your hand on your belly, and just getting it back to more in your belly is what we always want to do, in my opinion. So try just breathing slower, longer into your belly. Fill it up more like a soft balloon. And then the exhale, just as important, slow and long with that one, out of your mouth or nose. And you don't want to shortchange that exhale. Make it long, make it complete. Just try a couple of those babies. Slower, longer into your belly. And a lot slower and longer with your exhales. And then you can even get into and feel, imagine how that breath is bringing in that fresh energy, that fresh oxygen to all your cells even more, refreshing you, starting to even purify you a bit. And then as you exhale, see and feel how that exhale is clearing you out, cleaning you out, like house cleaning for the body, for the mind. Use that, see that, play with that. Let stuff go, right? And that's where, yeah, you start to see how powerful and simple that is, but just the simplicity of using things like relaxation, using the tools of the simplest of breath. We'll do another day more with some funky, groovy, awesome breath exercises. But just right now, did you even remember that your breath is an energy medicine tool you can use for yourself, do to yourself, for yourself, anytime, anywhere, right? And then the more that you're even focusing on how it's helping you, thinking about it, picturing that, makes it work better. It's like the placebo effect. We now know just if you think it's working better. And that's where, too, what you're focusing on. You're giving yourself a chance to focus on something different than maybe that problem you were ruminating about, or that thing about yourself you were hating on, which are probably part of the mood things, right? A lot of the time. But then what's helpful in all these practices, so we're relaxing and we're breathing, right? And we're listening and feeling more. And we're just dropping in more to just like, yeah, what is true for me right now? What's happening in the body? How's my energy feeling? How's the mind been going? What's life been like? And then even like smiling is an energy medicine tool. And laughing is an energy medicine tool. And crying is an energy medicine tool. And that's where we'll talk more about feelings. So important, but that's where it's nice to allow those things, because they're here to help us. And that's where you start to see, like, this is why I talk about it as tuning, that we start to realize that it's all energy. We're energy, every bit of it, especially our mood, our mind, and our mental health too. And there's a momentum to the energy. And what we focus on grows. And so we start to see like, oh, but then I could start to see it as my job to more often tune into how I am doing, how I am feeling, as a way to check in on my energy. And then do some things more often to tune myself more towards how I do want to feel. Whether it's those simple tools like just relaxing more, right? Or using our breath a little bit more therapeutically, and just the awareness that it's all energy. And certainly remember that non-judgment and even more like self-love we're dropping into with these practices. That's an energy shift too, right? But also that chance to listen to yourself more, to tune into what is true, how it has been going, what is going on for you is part of it. And then, you know, the energy medicine of all the things we can do in the mind and imagination, right? To shift things. But even just the importance of even quieting. And I think yesterday I mentioned that idea that I got from Eric Schiffman, who's been one of my big teachers, the idea that you can play with this windshield wipe your mind idea for a few seconds to clear your mind, clear the slate, change the momentum. And it actually does. Or things like you can relax your mind like another muscle. Or bring to mind, just picture, think about, it doesn't have to happen a certain way, but maybe a clear blue sky. But that's where you can see that that presence that we talked about yesterday is tuning you to, like what you are choosing to be present with, again, what you're watching, what you're listening to, who you're with, is part of that tuning. That's all energy too. That's going to be tuning your focus too. So that's where it's nice to just be conscious with that and decide if it's something that's tuning you towards how you do want to feel, how you do want to focus. And then just the importance of finding ways to tune into you so that you can check in on how you're doing energy-wise and shift that. And then, yeah, like any ways we can like move our body, which, you know, there's all sorts of ways, and that's where those poses are amazing too. But just to intuitively kind of follow your body if you kind of want to stretch or shift, remembering it's all energy, and then using your breath with that. Like you can play with, imagine, get into breathing into where you feel tight, perhaps like stuck energy, and just play with how you can exhale, release that, let that go. Right? Gosh, this time goes quick. It's no problem for me to talk for 20 minutes. So it's all energy, and that's why we can affect it. So even the mood stuff, even the little labels, it's all energy, right? And that's why we can shift it and change it, and that's why it is us who can shift it and change it. And that's where, you know, some of my favorite teachers on energy, some of my good friends have reminded me, even the meds, right, that we might take as part of mental health. That's a form of energy too. So I want to be open if that's something that's working for you. You know, I mean, potentially maybe long-term, those things may have their harder effects on the organs. That may be my only thing I can say, that maybe the reason eventually to see about shifting off the meds and knowing that we can, you know, if the meds have helped us to a certain level, that then maybe we can start to build in these natural ways to boost the serotonin, right? So even to get into like when we relax, we're boosting that serotonin, that same thing that med did for you. Or like it's anxiety is one of the mood things, you know, these things that we can do more often to just relax ourselves, to manage the energy. That's with anxiety, really, when we get into that, it's all energy. And that often that is just like more energy coming through, or like almost it feels like too much energy, right? So that's where it's like even more powerful, like how we manage that and play with that and channel that and flow that and even free it up and learn to let stuff go. It's exciting, like how we can really shift that and stay on top of that and just interpret it differently. I think even just the interpretation of, oh, that's just energy instead of a disease, you know, like our disorder, that to me feels more empowering. Even if it's gotten to a disorder point, I think the more that we're ready to start seeing it as energy, the faster we can shift it and lift it. And then we might still have feelings of anxiety sometimes, right? But then now we just kind of know, oh, I'm having feelings of anxiety or feelings of depression or, you know, whatever the mood stuff may be. But now we start to know it's more energy, and we start to look more at like our presence and like, oh, what have I been attending to and what have I been thinking about and focusing on, and is all energy, and there's a momentum, and can I shift that and lift that, right? And I would vote yes, with love. But remember that non-judgment self-love is a huge part we want to build in every time, because that's a big part of the shift and the lift, and even the improving our mental health, right? And our connection with ourself is a lot. And that's where connection, why is this about connection? We're going to talk about more and how that's a core of the therapy too, to help you just reconnect with you and who you are, and maybe your more spiritual, loving self, your true self is part of what these practices are built for. So we'll get more and more into that. But yes, today, let's play with and go into the day more like it's all energy. How I feel tells me about my energy right now. Can I do a little to shift how I feel towards a little better? Because knowing that's going to like raise my energy, my vibe, which is going to shift how my body feels, shift how my mind's thinking. Different sorts of thoughts will come through on that different vibe. And then different things will happen in your day. I tell you, you may think that's crazy, but it's absolutely true. Your day will go much differently. Everybody around you will be much different when you get yourself in that different, better, higher vibe. So there's lots of payoffs to this lifestyle and approach, but mainly that it's going to help you feel better and flow better and have more ways that you're reconnecting with you so that you even can be the loving you that you want to be with the people around you, right? But to see it's all energy, how you feel tells you about your energy, and things you can do to feel better are going to help you shift and lift that energy, and that there's a momentum to it. So that's where I think at the base of this program, I'd like you to come out with daily, we want to be doing things to manage that energy, and especially towards the starts of the day, because that's our freshest start when our energy is maybe the purest, or we kind of have a reset overnight. So that's where mornings are so important too. Like what we're doing in our mornings really tunes us for the day, but really any time of day, we want to tune in more and play with how we can tune up. And that's going to be a huge way to affect our mood, mind, and mental health. And we just did a couple simple ones today. You might play with them later too. Just the relax, the breathe more into your belly, and even some of the present stuff like we did yesterday, and just noticing where is your attention, what are you focusing on. Oh yeah, and the quieting we've already gotten into too. Just knowing all of that is part of how you can be affecting that momentum and affecting your energy, and really honoring that it's all energy and that you can manage it, you can lift it, you can shift it. And these tools are energy medicine that you do to yourself, for yourself, and more like every day. And, you know, I went a little long, but I do want to mention one more thing is other people's energy. Yeah, we're probably picking it up, right? And even other people's thoughts. That's a real awareness for us to be open to more and more. So that's where it's even more important to just keep reconnecting with ourselves and doing things to kind of shed that, let that go with these practices too, with love, right? Not because they suck or we're afraid of their energy, but because we can just honor, we're picking it up probably, and that is probably playing a role in our energy. So the more that we can tune our energy, let that stuff go with these simplest of tools, even just breathing that shit off and out, right? And laughing and crying, you know, like those are all ways that we're shifting it, lifting it, letting it go, knowing that it's all energy and we are picking up other people's energy. But the more that we can hone our vibe and own it, really, that we can become, you know, the alignment that actually is going to affect them. So I think we don't have to be afraid of them. We don't even have to protect ourselves from them, but we can just be aware with love, build our vibe so we're strong enough to shift them and lift them maybe. But that's only going to happen because we've gotten strong enough in our higher vibe, which translates into feeling better. So basically, the better you feel, the higher your vibe. And so things that help you do that, that's where, like, we'll talk about these later too, but like music, dancing, walking, anything that like gets you feeling better is part of how you can be managing your energy and even your mood and mental health. And that's where it may feel very luxurious, but wow, no, it's more about like self-love, and that you're like, no, I'm staying on top of my freaking mood. Especially if you've been challenged with it, then I would say make this the top of your list. You know, start your days in amazing ways and see how you feel different. And just know you're doing it for you and everybody around you. Nobody's going to complain when they see you feeling better, flowing better, and in the better mood, right? And especially if you're a parent, you're really affecting everybody, so it's even better reason to do it. But yes, so loving you all. Thank you so much for coming with me on this. I'm really enjoying letting this come through. It feels really important to me. So I love you. See you tomorrow, 9 a.m. and this recording will be up. And if you have anyone you know who might benefit from this, please send them either through the Instagram on my story or I'm going to have the YouTube playlist up so that they could join it at any point and just, you know, catch up. And then on Facebook, we're doing it in it's the yoga group, so they can totally join there, because I also share all sorts of other resources there. So anyways, love you guys. Adios.